45 years ago, a young lawyer rolled his wheelchair into the Tulsa County Courthouse for the first time. His name was Tomy Dee Frasier, and he'd come to Tulsa because the courthouse had an elevator. That would be the last shortcut Tomy Dee ever took to the top of his profession. The rest of the going would be earned, the hard way, case by case, cause by cause, campaign by campaign, one step at a time. He would come to have many friends in high places and low who knew him simply as Tomy Dee, or Tommy. He chose the spelling T-O-M-Y as a kid, reasoning to his parents that because it was his name, he ought to be able to spell it any way he wanted. It would be his first documented oral argument, and it foretold a deep conviction to personal liberty.
I thought Tommy would be anything Tommy wanted to be, because he had a lot of determination.
As a gangly 17-year-old Marine Corps recruit, Tomy Dee had taken an oath to defend our United States Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. He upheld that oath with zeal in the Pacific Island battlegrounds of World War II. Wounded several times, he continued to return to his rifle company and would earn a Silver Star for gallantry. The only thing that could send him home from the front was a bullet wound that paralyzed him below the chest.
I had not completed high school, and I got paralyzed, and the government gave me some aptitude tests, and they said that the test said that I could fit into the mold for a teacher, a preacher, or a lawyer. Well, I wouldn't wish me off on any children. That's knocked out the teacher business. I was already having enough trouble with God. I didn't want to saddle myself with that, so that only left the lawyer.
In 1951, thanks to that elevator, Tomy Dee would resume the fight in Oklahoma. This time, the enemies to the Constitution were right at home, those who would erode every citizen's rights and liberties. These new foes marched under the banner of so-called law and order, and later tort reform, and their objective was to dilute America's civil justice system.
We were in law school at a time that the Supreme Court had just ruled in Arkansas that blacks should be admitted to the University of Arkansas Law School at Fayetteville, and one black student was there, and about 3 more arrived while we were there. They were still, unfortunately, segregated, however, and there was a small room in the basement of the law school that the blacks were told that would be their study hall. As soon as that occurred, Tommy immediately moved into that room with them to set an example and to point out the distance, I think, that we still had to go.
He championed working people, folks who enjoyed no special rank or privilege, just those rights guaranteed to every man and woman, those rights which would make them equal under the law.
He's a believer that if you don't appreciate the criminal law system and the Constitution and those things that he tells us are vanishing, our rights, and I do believe that. You don't have any business representing somebody over their injuries or their property if you don't appreciate their liberty.
In the courtroom, he defended thousands of clients, extending his service to persons of every conceivable circumstance.
Back in days past, he represented some pretty notorious outlaws, and that's, I think, in part where he got the appreciation for the criminal law. Rex Brindley is where he belongs in the penitentiary, but it was a real challenge. Tommy represented Rex and others back in those days when if law enforcement in Oklahoma wanted to get your client, they'd file charges in 15 counties. And you'd go to Osage County to get your client out of jail and find that they had moved him to Adair County. And you go to Adair County and lo and behold, he's in Ottawa County. And then you'd get to Ottawa County and sure enough, he was in Cleveland County. I mean, those were rough and tumble days.
I don't think the wheelchair slowed him down a bit.
What he had achieved because of his optimism and determination. And it really told everybody, you know, if Tom had made this of his life, then there wasn't any excuse for any of the rest of us who had a lot less to overcome.
Tommy was highly successful because of his distrust of government and respect for the law.
I'm not sure that he ever knew too much about fear. He didn't particularly give a hoot who you were or what you were. If he thought something was right, that's what he went after.
His personal divining rod led him to challenge all assaults of individual rights.
He was in that famous Democratic convention, and he was hauled off to jail for that marches up there, and he almost lost all his business for it. I mean, the labor unions were quite upset with him. I mean, at that time it was not popular to be standing up for peace, but he'd seen so many boys, you know, killed.
His theory in the practice of law was, if in your criminal case or if you're in your civil case, if you find that weakness, that little hole in the dike, the Arkansas theory is stick your finger in it and work it like hell until your case comes together.
He saw an overbearing church equally offensive as an overbearing state, and in important cases he successfully opposed the use of the pretext of religious freedom to injure individuals.
You know, I didn't set out in this life to crusade against religions. I don't, that's not one of my aims, but I do think that the Constitution is applicable to all of us.
The Marion Gwynn case, the little lady who was besieged by the church in Collinsville for what they perceived to be bad conduct. I remember that case came into the office, and one of the lawyers here decided that there was no case there, and literally shooed the woman away. And Tommy heard about it and insisted that she come back. And of course, since then it's all history. It was a big verdict. It was a great trial, and it's been on all the talk shows and everything.
They just invaded hell out of her privacy every way but north, threatened her, and they got carried away, and they were following Marion and Gwen around, hiding in the bushes, checking on when she got home and who she was with.
The Jimmy Swaggart case was a tremendous victory.
I didn't know really what I was getting into. I did know that I'd had about all of these cloth-selling preachers that I wanted to. At that time, I was about ready to chase them all out of business if I could. I've since mellowed some.
Tommy saw the lawsuit there and saw the recovery there when, quite frankly, I thought it was wasting time, and I sure as the devil thought he wasted a lot of money. But he didn't. He was right.
I didn't think that, and still don't, that the law allows even the Pope to tell a damn lie, and that's what they were doing.
In his spare time, Tomy Dee took on the cause of education. Along with others who shared his promise to protect our civil justice system, he helped nurture the Oklahoma Trial Lawyers Association.
I think the trial lawyers are the only thing that, the only device that I know of that truly stand for the rights of an individual. I think that but for the trial lawyers, you wouldn't have hard hats at construction sites. You wouldn't have steel toes in shoes in the working place. You wouldn't have the safety devices, even though they're totally inadequate, on the vehicles that we drive or the airplanes that we fly. I think it all goes back to trial lawyers.
Through Tomy Dee's efforts, OTLA has educated numerous public officials and policymakers who can impact our rights with the stroke of a pen.
But it was never Tom in the spotlight saying, "Follow me, I'm Tom Frasier." It was Tom quietly working with the people around him to say, "Now here's something we need to get done. Here's something that's worth our attention and worth our effort." And so Tom was able to achieve a tremendous amount without often it even appearing that Tom was getting it done.
What really is his inspiration, what his legacy is the courage he'll give us all, not me, but all, to stand up for poor people, and stand up for black people, stand up for those, the underdog. And that's why he leads us in OTLA and in general.
Now we've extended our efforts with the People's Law School, helping citizens appreciate the rights we all take for granted, thanks to people like Tomy Dee Frasier.
I don't think ever in the history of this nation, well, I know never in the history of this nation has there been as large a gap between the working people of this nation and the super rich. I mean, it's getting bigger all the time. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And I don't mean to say I'm destitute. I've had my share of contingent fees. But the trial lawyers are the only thing that keep this, that I know of, that'll keep this government working.